All right, welcome back to another episode of Level the Playing Field. Today we're going to start talking about Drake. Not necessarily my favorite person in the world, but John loves him, and I love this move that he made. It has nothing to do with music. This prick online was giving him shit and being a humorless asshole. And so Drake went and said, you know what? I'm going to follow your wife, and I'm going to DM her and say, hey, if he's giving you a hard time, I'm here for you. And I love it. I think, I wish, it kind of follows, the theme of, I've been on the side of, Kyrie giving the fans a finger when they're saying derogatory shit to him or whatever. I think people who get upset that celebrities who snap back when fans are just ruthless and assholes to them, that doesn't make any sense to me. I love this move, and I wish more celebrities did stuff like this.
Yeah, I think that Drake's just that level of petty, right? Like whether he does it in his raps or he does it in his Instagram posts or his what he includes or excludes and stuff. Yeah, I think he's just that level of you're gonna do this to me, then I'm gonna let you know, and I'm gonna hit you back with whatever. I don't really know what's come out of this beyond that, but I know that in listening to some hip hop radio shows and stuff, they're just they're kind of saying Drake is that's beneath Drake, and then what you're saying, right? He's actually, this is not beneath me. If you want to take some shots, I'm gonna come for you. And his clout is so high that everyone's gonna pay attention to it. And so even if nothing came from this beyond just he sent a DM to this guy's wife, the amount of traction that would have caught and the traffic that guy would have caught from all of Drake's fans and just random other people that saw this was probably enough for this guy to be maybe I shouldn't do this anymore.
I don't know. I think he was using it to try and build his own social media, because he was the one posting the DMs, and he was the one building this up into Drake just did it and left it alone. This guy made it a huge deal and didn't even really seem that angry about it. He just wanted the attention, right? So he put it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's a funny thing. I thought maybe in an overly critical way, I thought that maybe Drake would have been a bit more clever than that. It would have been funnier because he was clever with what he said. But
Oh, I thought it was pretty funny.
but that's just me being overly critical, right? I'm okay, this guy's a rapper, right? He's got to have good lines. So I was okay, this is okay. I just thought it would be a little funnier for me if we're looking at social media and people building a career off of Drake is this fake Drake guy. Have you seen this guy?
No.
There's a fake Drake. He doesn't even really look like him aside from the facial hairs cut out exactly like Drake's. And he goes to Vegas and he's going to Miami and he's going to all these places for appearances. And people are thinking it's him.
He's tricking people, or he's
Apparently,
impersonating?
He's saying that he's Drake and going and making club appearances. And there's a couple of videos now where I think it's parody. It's humor. But he's singing just hold on, we're going home. And people are oh my God, it's Drake. And there's people grabbing him. He's kind of got his a fake security detail with him and all the stuff. And this guy is just acting like he's Drake wherever he goes. And so Drake has come out and talked about this and said as long as you don't cost me money, do you and live your life. If this is what you're doing to
And here's the address where you can send me my cut.
right, he's as long as you're not gonna get me in trouble and you're not gonna hurt me and my brand, get yours, fake Drake. But as the moment this crosses that line, it's over.
If he doesn't even really look that alike, it's kind of your fault.
So if from afar or in passing, you could kind of be but he's not as tall, he's not as jacked,
Yeah.
but in passing when he wears his sweatsuits, you know what I mean, his monochromatic outfits, that's the kind of look he has. And when you're in a dark club and they're oh, Drake's here, you know what I mean, everybody thinks that it doesn't take much for you to find out where Drake is. His social is very active about where he's at.
Yeah.
So if he's in the Bahamas and then all of a sudden he's in a club in Miami,
Or if he walks through the front door, that's probably not Drake.
right. So All around, like, yeah, I think him on social media is really funny. And so, like, the fact that he's going to clap back with some of these people that come for him, like, good for him. But, like, even some of the stuff that he does, like, for, like, he's got a partnership with Stake now, this, like, online gambling casino website. Like, the stuff that he does on that, like, that he's showing that he's just constantly betting money. I'm like, I think Drake has an aggressive gambling problem, but it's funny.
It's only a problem if
He
you
can't afford it, and he can afford it, right? But yeah, the fake Drake thing, like, if you haven't seen that yet, now that we've talked about it and our phones are listening, yeah, I'm sure fake Drake will show up. But for me, that's like the funniest thing about Drake online right now. That's even funnier than when like Rihanna started going out with ASAP Rocky. It was all the sad Drake pictures. Like that was really funny, and like he didn't really address it. He's like, yeah, I guess so. Like, yeah, I do get in my feelings about women. So like he kind of like is able to like be playful about himself. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen too much like reaction to this. The article I read about it though, the chick who wrote the article was not impressed. She was very negative about Drake in that article.
Just saying like, why are you doing this? Like it's
Yeah,
not
she
your
has
style, or
she's one of these people who has the opinion that celebrities should just
stay
be
in their
rubber
lane.
and not glue and let everything bounce off them, right? And but like, why? We're all people. It's just gonna get to me, or I could just feel like responding, even if it doesn't bother me. If you're
Maybe he
gonna say
just
something
needs a
dumb-
burner account like Kevin Durant.
but-
That's still, I think that's still one of the funniest like social media I'm a celebrity like interactions ever, is that like he created a burner to just go after all the people, all the haters. Like amazing.
And then he forgot to switch.
And then he forgot to switch and outed himself, but now he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna be me.
Yeah.
I thought so. I really enjoy that. Like, I find Draymond Green to be a little annoying. Like, just the way he explains things, the way he articulates his opinions about things. Like, it's just like, I don't know if you like are mindful or aware that like of what you do in these instances. I think there's like a lack of awareness for him at times. But like some of the stuff that he says about like not taking crap, I can get on board with. It's like, he's like, I'm a person. Like, you do this stuff to me, like I'm gonna say stuff. Like, I'm not gonna hold back. Like, I'm not just gonna be nice all the time because you expect me to be nice.
Yeah.
Or like when he's getting fined for like his comments about the refs or whatever the comments were, or about his flagrant or whatever it was. He's like commenting
Did he get fined
on
for that video?
I don't know. I think he made comments about the flagrant, how he felt about it,
He put up like a emergency episode of his video.
and so he got
podcast.
fined for something. So if it's this emergency video, he's like,
But doesn't he just get fined for the flagrant?
I believe so. But then I think if he's critical of officials, and I don't know if that was part of it, but I think he got fined for the foul, and I don't know if anything happened after that. But he's like, you know what? It's not a big deal. You know why? Because I'm just going to go make a couple appearances. I'm going to pay this fine.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a pretty, like, big boss. I'm going to take a hold of my balls and show you how big they are move. So that part I can appreciate of it. And, like, same thing here with Drake. Like, for everything that people make fun of him for, the fact that he's like, you know what? I'm going to have a little fun. Okay. And, like, at least I know, like, you're a human.
Yeah.
So that's all right. Keeping it moving in the celebrity world.
Speaking of not humans,
Tom Brady getting his second career already set up with Fox, being the new personality for their flagship like commentator team, because Troy Aikman and Joe Buck have moved to ESPN. Right, they're going to be doing Monday Night Football, so they needed to find some new talent, and I guess they were able to convinced Tom to sign on the dotted line for what, $40 million?
400. So
400 over 10.
The released number was 375 for 10, but I was listening to somebody and I don't know where they got this opinion from. They had the opinion it was closer to 40, but either way, $37.5 million per year for 10 years to be a boring douche on TV. Whether you like Tom Brady or not, there is a 0% chance he adds $40 million of value to their TV.
Yeah, sure. Like that's definitely a perspective on it. I think like, how much is Tony Romo making?
less, I think.
Like
Not
less,
much less,
but not much, right?
But he also like had to be on and prove that he was good at it, and like the worms kind of turn on him. Like people don't love him as much as they used to, but like he had to show that he had ability and that people wanted to tune in to watch him specifically. He got 10 fucking years. The guy hasn't even stopped playing yet.
Yeah. And maybe the way that it rolled out, like maybe I'm like, I don't know if I'm on board with that, but you got to think that even if it doesn't live up to its standards, he's going to be good enough on TV.
I don't think so, man.
I think sometimes your dislike of Tom Brady, like I think he's funny. Like there are things that he does that are funny, and I think that will translate.
But the things he does that people find funny, they're very planned, manicured things, right? Like he's doing this very produced, like Instagram video or something, right? He's not like he's gonna have to sit there and be charming and witty and interesting at a like split second notice. He can't. There's no retakes. There's no. I have to plan this far ahead. Like, I think he's gonna be exposed as not like yeah. I hate him, so I'm never gonna like anything he does. I'll admit that right now. But like, I think this will expose that like. As much as like people like what he does, it's not. I don't know. He's just not. I don't think he's somebody who can just like at a moment's notice be like crack off a joke or say something like, or be like interesting in the situation. Right. And I think he's a huge phony. So I think that's going to come across as well.
Yeah, and I guess watching him be in New England for so long and him coming off kind of like the artificial, like very manicured, prescribed like answers in interviews and press conferences and media and all of that, like. I see that part of him, but then like I've seen him since he's left there, and like, is there still like polish on it? For sure, but it's different polish to me, and like I think that as he moves away from the game, the way that he sets himself up will lend itself well to TV.
Yeah, he's definitely shown a lot more personality since he's left, right? So it's not as polished as like the professional like. Always thinking about business persona that he had to have in New England that Belichick demanded of him. But, like, in my opinion, the things he's put out has still been, like, very, like, it's been very planned, right? And that's just something he's not going to be able to do on live TV.
Yeah. And, like, I'm sure the production team will cue some things up for him that are just going to be, like, go-to bread and butter parts of his broadcast.
But how does he even know what that is yet? That's the problem. He's making $40 million and he's never spoken a word on TV.
Well, not in that capacity, no. But I think that they're gonna coach him up, right? Like I think Tom Brady has shown that he's a learner. I mean, like he does things to like the utmost of like performance. I think that they're banking on him doing that. Whatever the conversations were around it, were like, this has been your approach to like all parts of your career. Like we're kind of like thinking you're gonna have that when you come here, and sometimes these things work out beautifully, right? And sometimes they don't. Like we're seeing that with Drew Brees right now, right? Like they thought he'd be great on TV, and it didn't really pop the way that they thought he would, right? Because
he's talking about playing again,
right? But like I think that's just not legit at all. I think he's just talking out loud there. So I think that part of it, and then what was I gonna say about Tom Brady? Oh, like I guess like I've seen a couple other places. Like I watched The Shop, like that HBO show that LeBron does, and he was on there, and like yeah, like they definitely have like scripted talking points that they're gonna have them talk about. But like when it was just them like kind of like bantering back and forth, he was very funny. Like he was quick. So whether he'll be able to do that in specific instances when it's referring to a football game, that part's unknown. But, like, I think he has it in him. It's just, will it translate?
Yeah, and I guess a lot of people were talking up that conversation he was having with Charles Woodson about the Tuck game. But the one thing I'll say about that is, like, there's a difference between watching something unfolding before your eyes and talking about something that you were a part of and that you've watched film on for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like he has to have watched that film like 50,000 times.
Yeah. And so I think that's the unknown for him, right? Is that like he's shown he can do it in all of these capacities, like when it's like to be quick and instant versus like being scripted. Well, will he be able to do that? And I think maybe at first it'll be like awkward because he probably has a framework for himself that he thinks will work, and then he'll have to fine tune it if he's given that opportunity to keep going, right?
So he signed. Who did he sign with again?
Fox.
So do we know who
he's replacing Troy Aikman.
Do we know who his? But Buck was also at Fox, right?
Yeah, it's Kevin Burkhardt.
Okay, I don't know.
So he's a guy who he was going between for a while. He was going between the second and third team, and then as America's Game of the Week and Buck and Aikman were like the top team, he was often being like the other game. So if America's Game of the Week was at 4, he had the 1:00, or vice versa. So he's good. Like you'll recognize his voice, and I think that he's been on with several other like former players. So he's been sort of like getting himself prepared. I guess the writing was on the wall for a while about Buck and Aikman kind of leaving Fox.
Right.
So
I think Brady's dumb enough to like show up and have like this "I'm better than you" attitude, but it'll be interesting to see how he meshes with someone that's like never played, right? Like,
yeah, and so I guess like I'm a little more optimistic about it because out of like some of the quarterbacks that could go, like I know that Peyton Manning and Eli Manning have like their own broadcast of Monday Night Football, and like that is like relatively successful because it's like different.
yeah,
Right? Like it's not them being the expert in analyzing, like wearing the suit in the studio kind of thing. And so I'm curious to know how much of that like balance is Tom Brady going to be having, or if it's going to be just in the booth, just like X's and O's, right? Like there's so much of this that's still unknown. The money's egregious, right? Like I don't think that that's up for debate, that like this guy is going to earn so much money and in 10 years compared to like what he's earned in like 20 something years, right? Like that's crazy.
nobody tunes in or out for these guys, right? If you want to watch Monday Night Football or you want to watch the Sunday Night Game of the Week or whatever the hell he's going to be doing, you're going to watch it. You and I could be doing the play-by-play. The same amount of people are going to watch, right? So, like, good or bad, it's impossible for him to add $40 million or $37 million of value to the broadcast. It's just an insane thing to do. But, I don't know. These guys are much more successful than I am, so they must know something I don't, but I can't see how it makes sense.
Yeah. So whenever that day happens in 2055 when he finally retires, then like great.
That's really, like, it's just like, what if he plays 4 more years, right? And then they have to find someone who's going to fill that spot for that time. Like, even like this year, they already have to, right?
Yeah.
And like this guy's just going to like do the job knowing that. So like what the people the people I heard would listen talking to it. Can't fucking speak English. The people I heard talking about it were saying that maybe like Greg Olson's going to be the guy who does it in the meantime, who the TV world seems to be kind of high on. If he comes in and crushes it, it's still under the guise that Tom Brady's coming in at some point and taking your job.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, how good would it be if they hired Drew Bledsoe to do it? And then Tom comes in and is like, hey, guess what? Me again.
And then Drew had like strep throat one day.
Yeah, and then Tom's in there. Yeah, that would be perfect. So I think that's how they should do it. When Tom's ready, they'll just call Drew Bledsoe back and be like, hey man, we need you for the foreseeable future.
Can you come to the first quarter? So
yeah.
you can have Tom come in and take your spot.
Yeah. So just beautiful. We'll see what happens there. All right. So you ready for your apology? Who's making this apology first? I guess
our friends.
Okay. Let's hear you.
I saw a tweet of the lineup for the Game 7, and I saw that Nylander got moved down to the third line.
Well, you know how I feel about William Nylander, so...
Best player ever.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I thought it was weird, and I don't know if like they think that everything I say is just sarcastic all the time or whatever because I'm not a Leaf fan.
Yes, I think yes is the answer.
But I was genuinely like, this is strange. Like, the offense, aside from Matthews and Marner, hasn't been great. It's weird that they're splitting up Tavares and Nylander. And I was like, and I was wanting the Leafs to win because I really
you want our friends to be happy. You care about us.
Exactly. So I was like, this is stupid. Like, they should have them together. And I just immediately got like, what the fuck do you know? So I was like, immediately, I didn't say it because I didn't want to start a whole thing, but immediately in my head I was like, fuck you guys. I'm now the biggest Lightning fan in the world. And turns out that I wasn't necessarily wrong. They scored a whole goal and lost in Game 7. And anytime they want to come apologize, they know where I am.
Yeah, I don't know how long you'll be waiting for that, but...
I'm going to hold my breath.
I was going to say, I think they're still recovering from the disappointment again. I was over it relatively quickly. I was like, oh...
Because you just started caring like 3 days before.
It's true. But it's also like... Every time I'm like, yeah, like this one sounds different, this one looks different. I definitely felt that way, just like how they were doing in the regular season. That like even though like the goalie questions are always there, I think for the Maple Leafs, but the fact that we had like the best Maple Leaf season ever from a player, right, and like is a candidate to win the Hart, right, like all of those things. I was like, if we're not gonna win now, how could we possibly ever expect to win? Like, that was, like, where my head was at. Like, this seems to be lining up. Like, you know, there's teams that kind of just, it lines up for it to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and you're like, oh. So, like, I know how I feel. I can't imagine someone who's, like, lived through, like, 40 years of this, 50 years of this is feeling. Or if they're just so numb to it now. Like, it's better for them. Versus, like, I was out Saturday night, and we watched before we went to the casino, and the guy got a call from his kid, and his kid's bawling about the loss. And I'm like, why would you sign your kid up for this level of abuse? Right? Like, I'm like, you're going to talk him off a ledge? I'm like, you sign him up for a lifetime of pain. And like, that guy was still working through his own frustration about it, and now he's consoling his kid. And I'm like, this is a whole like other level of like fan disappointment and heartbreak.
Yeah, I don't know. Like they definitely have like great fucking players, but they also have like a horrendous defense, and they have guys playing on the second and third line who are just not good.
Just guys.
They're just guys. Like Mikheyev is trash. I don't know. I don't even know how many goals he scored, but he's not. He's not a second line player on a championship team. And,
obviously, because they're out.
Right, and they have fucking like Justin Holl playing fucking defense, and for some reason Jason Spezza was on the ice in the last 5 minutes of the fucking game. It made no sense.
It was his curtain call. I think he's done.
If I was a Leaf fan, I'd be calling for Sheldon Keefe's head.
And so I'm glad you brought this up because we got into a little spirited debate before we hit the casino floor, and I was saying that like, how does the front office keep their job as well? Like, if they're gonna clean house here, like, how many more times can you fire the coach before you're saying like, these guys also marched this product out there, their names are also signed here. How do they get to keep their job? We're just going to keep cycling in a coach thinking it's going to be different? Like, there's been a block here for 5 years. It's not like this is 1 year or 2 years in a row.
It's not 5, it's like 18.
But 5 with like this setup,
yeah.
right? With the people that are there, it's been 5. And so after like 2 years, you'd be like, okay, like maybe this third year, I'll give you another shot, like thin ice, bud. And then like, okay, like there's incremental improvement. So like, you know what? Year 4, right? You're going to give you one more shot. Like now this is the 5th time. And you're saying that those guys get to keep their jobs. And so that was the debate. I'm like, how are you going to be able to tell your fan base, how are you going to be able to rationalize this everywhere where like, you're going to say, you know what? It's only the coach again, but Dubas and Shanahan should keep their jobs as well.
I
So
think
I want to know what you think
I
about
think as
that.
far as like the front office goes, you can make a pretty convincing argument that like they had like the second or third best record in the NHL in the regular season, and that they obviously amassed a good amount of talent, right? And it's just like it's when you are working in short series, that's when like matchups and like how you disperse your players and stuff like that really start to matter. Whereas over like a long season, that kind of stuff just kind of levels out, right? The talent usually rises to the top. So that's why I would say I would get rid of Keefe and not necessarily Dubas or Shanahan. Also, like
But this is their guy, right? Like Keefe is their guy. Like they're
Keefe
like
is Kyle Dubas's baby. Like he brought him up through the Marlies and like waited for uh, what's the fuck guy's name before Babcock. They waited once Babcock got fired. Like they immediately brought him up, and like it was. I don't even remember it being much of a question who was going to coach once Babcock left. I lost my train of thought. Oh right. But also like the thing about bringing in another GM right now is that their cap is so fucked that like you could fire Dubas, but the guy that comes in is going to inherit all the same problems, and it's going to have very limited ways of fixing it immediately. So I think
you know what this team
consensus
needs in the
is
front office? They got to send the enforcer in. They got to find a GM enforcer, send him in there, get in a fight, make a statement, let the boys know that he's there to defend them, and then move on. Dubas is not an enforcer GM.
but yeah, you gotta let Dubas kind of see if he can wiggle out of it, and then once like Matthews' contract comes up, and if he doesn't resign, and you end up having to, I don't
Sell
this
the farm
isn't
kind of thing.
yeah, that's not my opinion. I heard Nick Kyprios saying that, and I don't know if he's taking crazy pills or whatever. He was talking about like a rebuild, like because like you don't know if Matthews can resign, right? And then once he doesn't resign, like do you work with just Tavares, Marner, and Nylander and try to build from that, or I don't even remember exactly the terms of like Tavares' contract, for example. Like, is he only got 1 year left after Matthews is gone? I don't know all this stuff. But like once Matthews, if he doesn't resign, or if you choose, which seems crazy, if you choose that like this isn't working, especially maybe specifically because of the way all the numbers line up, and it's just not something you're going to be able to make work, and you have to start over from a cap perspective, then that's when you would like get the new GM to make all these decisions, right? But now you're going to be putting a guy in a situation where his hands are tied, and so you're not giving him a fair shot. So you might as well let the guy who's already there try and figure it out.
Yeah, I guess for me it was like the time frame, like 5 years of not moving.
Has it been 5 years since Lamoriello left?
I think so. I'm pretty sure I heard that it's been five seasons of. I don't know if it was Lamoriello and then 4 of Dubas, but like he's been around.
Yeah, like he was the assistant GM when Lamoriello was here. I don't remember exactly when they chose Dubas over Lamoriello though.
Let's see here. 2014. Let's see. That's when he joined as an assistant. This is just really cutting edge research I'm doing right now on the fly.
The wiki.
Yeah, good old Wikipedia. So 27 after the 2017-18 season, Lamoriello's contract's not renewed.
So 18, 19, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20. So this sounds like 4 years.
Yeah. So he's been there for 4 of these. So I guess next year is his 5th year, and then I can come calling for his head.
Sure.
All right. So that seemed like that was the debate for me, and I'm like, whether it happens or not, I'm like, how are we not having the conversation? Or like, how isn't there like tons of heat on the front office as well? Like, because if there's regular season success, great. obviously assembling a team full of talent. It's a great job. I don't think anyone's debating that. But if we're getting to the exact same spot every year, and like, yeah, there's matchups and all of that stuff, but like, you also got to think that like the front office is also contributing to getting this team beyond the first round. Like, eventually the coach is going to be the person who eats it for a while. And then when the coach goes and you get another coach in, and then they're still eating it, like, you're choosing who's creating the matchups. You're choosing who's like setting the lineups, the strategy, all of those things. So you have to have some influence there, and you also have to be a little culpable for the lack of success too. So I guess it's just like what I'm hearing you say is that it's not quite yet that time, but it will eventually if this continues.
It's just there's no advantage to bringing somebody in because they're not going to be able to fix it right away without completely blowing it up, which that nobody thinks is the right time to do that.
Right.
The one thing I don't really understand about like how one team is able to. So like we'll just take Tampa for example, right? Who they just finished playing. They have Stamkos, Kucherov, Point, Sergachev, Hedman, McDonough, Vasilevsky, all making big money. But we have like 4 of those guys, or I guess Riley makes good money too, so 5. And our cap, or I keep saying our, the Leafs cap is fucked. But like these guys are, I know that they've had good luck or good planning or cheating or however you want to phrase it. A couple times Kucherov has been hurt for a long time and his salary's come off the books and he's come back in time for the playoffs and they've been able to add people that way. But like this year they didn't do that and they still had all those guys and they still had guys like Zach Bogosian who doesn't make a lot of money anymore, but I don't think he makes like nothing. And like Killorn and that guy Nick Paul, I think he makes a little bit of money too. The guy who scored a couple goals in Game 7.
That Maroon guy.
Yeah, I don't think he makes too much.
Okay. I was just name dropping. You were name dropping, so I wanted to be part of it. Vasilevsky.
Pat Maroon has won 3 titles in a row though.
Yeah, he's
been on a lot of winners.
He's like that guy. What's the guy's name? Patrick McCaw or whatever. That won those ones with Golden State, then came and won a third in a row or whatever with the Raptors.
Yeah, so I don't really understand. Well, I guess the answer is like the way. How can is it just like so like Stamkos when he signed left money on the table, right? Because he signed in Tampa, so he doesn't have to make as much to be worth it for him, right? Because the state income tax. So is it just that the Leafs have to pay more for all their guys to otherwise they feel underpaid compared to like other people? Because
yeah, could be that, could be the market, could be all those things, the prestige that comes with being a Maple Leaf and all that. Like I don't know. Because I'm just spitballing. Like I have no idea.
They have less guys who are in that like echelon of pay.
The pressure that the franchise feels to be a winner, I don't know if there's that kind of pressure from
I'm not even
talking
about like their success. I just mean like the way their cap works. Like they seem to be able to fit way more guys under their cap. So is that like cap mismanagement by Dubas? Is it that like what I actually think part of it is like when they got Tavares, he got a big number, right? So then and he's brand new to the team. So why would Matthews, who's like a better player and way more responsible for their success or failure, why would he take less than him or even the same as him, right? And same with Marner, and then Nylander took less than all of them, but he held out to get as much as he could. Like so, these guys all seem these guys all seem incentivized to make every dollar they can, right? Not that there's their only motivation in life or whatever, but that's how they negotiated their contracts. Whereas I think other teams have been able to like, why don't you shave a couple million off? And,
I think it's prestige of the team. Like so the example I'm thinking of is like people who play on the Yankees, right? The Yankees pay people
Yeah, but there's no cap in baseball.
But like regardless of that, like the idea that like people who go to the Yankees and play for the Yankees get like big contracts, regardless of the, so I'm not talking about the cap part, but like they get these big number contracts where like a team that doesn't have like that level of like pomp and circumstance and all of those things, they can probably get away with that because like they're marketing themselves as this level of organization, and the players that play there are now also marketing themselves as like, I'm this guy who plays for this team. I should be compensated to match the level of the franchise. And like whether that's accurate or whatever, like I'm just thinking about that. And like, so Tampa Bay, for example, they kind of like came up together, like for Stamkos, him, like what you mentioned with the tax bracket, I think that's a valid point, right? That the taxes in Florida are very, very kind to people who make lots of money. So that's maybe part of it. And that there's not that level of like, when people look at Tampa Bay, are they saying that this is like a cream of the crop franchise? And maybe that's part of their,
Historically, no, but now, yeah.
right now they are, right? But historically, no. And like maybe that's part of it for them. Like when Stamkos was signing that contract, were they at this level? I
Just
think
about.
I think they were on their way to it,
Yeah.
and then like their plans have obviously worked out to win two in a row, right? But at the time, it was like, here's where we think we will be, and then now that they're there, I'm curious to know like when Stamkos' contract is up, like what will happen,
Well, he could have been a Leaf if he wanted to be.
right? And
They
so
wanted him. They would try their ass off to get him.
maybe he didn't want that, right? He didn't want to have that like level of commitment to the team, and like not like as a player, but like being the face of the NHL.
Yeah.
Like some people don't want that. And like you talked about it, about like especially Toronto hockey media is brutal to the players. So
Yeah. Unless you're Luke Engvall, then you're the savior.
yeah, and you made that point very clear as well. So that's funny. So we had a friend of the podcast on, Aaron Riley from Brutally Honest
Sports.
Sports. There, I was like, I know there's a third. So thanks for the assist. So we had him on because he is a Philadelphia 76ers fan, and we wanted to hear about a perspective about Joel Embiid and whether Philly fans also feel like he's a crybaby. Because you know how I feel about Joel Embiid and his whining and crying and flopping all the time. And I think Dave's on the same page there. So we have a little segment with that. You're ready to talk about, as I say, you're ready to talk about your boy Joel, eh?
Yeah, we can definitely go that route. I have no problem doing that.
We've done like 4 different episodes. We're just raging on him.
Yeah,
So-
I've bagged on him pretty hard.
So yeah, eventually it occurred to me. I was like, wait, we talked to somebody from Philly before. Let's get him on.
Yeah, I think personally, I don't think all of it's on him, but obviously he's not he's not gonna escape the the criticism. Like there's no way he did enough. So
Yeah, I guess like for me, like when we talk about Joel, I think like as a player, he's got serious skills, like a very good basketball player. My issues are all like about him being such a crybaby.
that's fair. Yeah, 100%. I get it. I just like, as far as that Heat series goes, I think ever since like what was it, right before Game 6, they said Jokic would be the MVP, and then he just came out and played like soft. Embiid, that is, like that's just like the worst thing you can do.
So like what's it like to have like Embiid on the 76ers? Like when he goes out and he's like the guy for your team, what are people saying about him in Philly?
I feel most of like the pulse I get is they don't really like, obviously they're not satisfied and they're irritated, but it's not really on him as much as like the surrounding cast. It seems like he's kind of the knight in shining armor still. Just because like I don't know, they have an affinity for him. I think like Doc Rivers is the one getting absolutely slammed this time around, And I mean James Harden to a certain degree as well, but I mean Embiid, like if he were to leave or something, like I think fans would be like devastated, you know.
Right on. And so, like, what was it like when James Harden arrived in Philly? Like, what was the conversation like?
Yeah, it was like everybody loved him, man. Like it was like wow, we finally got. I mean, the bigger problem was like obviously getting rid of Simmons and like just getting rid of that mess. And then like everybody was like, oh my god, like James Harden's gonna take us over the top. Where I was kind of like, I don't know, man. He's kind of like a shell of himself at this point.
You gave up a
Like,
lot.
what's that?
You gave up a lot. You gave up a lot of your depth to get him. Like it was
Yeah,
like Simmons, like don't even count him, right? But like Seth Curry and Andre Drummond, right? Like
yeah,
became
100%.
very shallow team.
I think really like losing Seth Curry was a huge hit. Just because like the role players, other than obviously like I mean you have Tobias Harris, he kind of gives you, you know, 12 to 22 points in that ballpark. Most of the time gets you boards. Like he's not a bad player, but like Seth Curry could go off and just hit, you know, 6, 7 threes sometimes. You know, obviously like his brother. Like without I mean, really, without Maxi, like this series could have been probably like at least one game less, if not more. In my opinion, I think like Tyrese Maxey pretty much held the team together. Obviously, Embiid, like being banged up as he was, I think played into it as well. But I think just Miami would have won this series probably in 7 if Embiid was fully healthy. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah, well, our boy Pascal made sure that Joel showed up a little banged up more so than he was in our series. So our
Yeah.
boy gave him a nice swing, strong basketball move, and that
Shouldn't have put his face there.
yeah, that's it.
Hey, it happens. It is what it is, right? But I think, in my opinion, like I can't stand Doc Rivers, and I couldn't stand him before he got here. So just another reason to get rid of him, in my opinion. Not saying he's 100% the problem, but I just think I just can't stand him. So
So you're thinking a new coach will help squeeze some more out of the Harden and Embiid combo, like, or what are you thinking about Harden and the idea that he is playing for like a super max at this point?
yeah, I think that's I
Didn't
think
they sign him almost right away?
No, he exercised his option right away.
Oh, right.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's like Harden. I wish Harden was like a rental more so. Like if they would have just had him for this year and then moved on, I wouldn't have a problem with that either. But he's just like, I don't know. He's obviously like he can get you a ton of assists and he can kind of run the offense as a true point, but he's just not like he's not a consistent threat, and he's never been that fantastic in the playoffs to begin with, even at his like peak. So it's tough, man. I mean, you're gonna have to like move pieces around. I don't like I don't want to say Doc is 100% all of it because like I think the team structurally, like Danny Green is like not that good. Like he had 2 good games in the whole series, probably in the whole playoffs. Really, he's not.
He's old as shit now too, right?
Yeah,
And he's
yeah,
played a ton of basketball. He's been in like half the finals of the last 10 years.
exactly. So like having him like as one, like he shouldn't, in my opinion, he shouldn't be starting on a championship caliber team. Like if he's coming off the bench, maybe, but he's just not good enough. And then like James, like you said, I mean, if James Harden's there, let's say 2 more years, I don't really know what you get. I would play him so limited in the regular season just to have him somewhat fresh for the playoffs, but he's still not a great player in the playoffs regardless. So
Yeah,
they're in a tough position. Like they kind of put themselves here because of that trade. Like you said, John, I mean, they gave up a lot. And like I think they should have went a different direction with that trade altogether. So
right on. What do you make of like Embiid's comments at the end of I can't remember which game it was, but he's kind of just said like that James Harden is kind of he is who he is at this point. So like, what do you think about that in terms of like relationships between those two players? Because like Joel kind of has a reputation for like being very blunt in conferences and interviews, but I don't know like what that means for like interpersonal dynamics, like off camera and like in the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's probably not the best thing to say. I mean, regardless if you feel that way or not, you probably shouldn't be spewing that to the media. But like you touched on, like Embiid's never been afraid to speak his mind. Like he kind of, I mean, he called out Ben Simmons. I say deservingly so at the time, but I don't know. It's not like benefiting the Sixers at all by what he's coming out and saying. Like I just feel like Embiid's tired of like going to the first round or the second round or the conference finals and then lose. Like, you know what I mean? He wants to get over the top and like he's just sick and tired of it, whether it's his fault or everybody else or whatever. Like he probably was just so tired of like he probably feels snubbed about the MVP for 2 years in a row. That's another thing. Um, whether you agree or not, but I just feel like he's sick and tired of losing and like losing in these playoff series where, it's like, are they ever going to get over the hump or are they just going to be the team that could have done it and didn't do it?
Right on. So like, what do you think about that? So like, obviously the Sixers season's done. So entering next season, if you're to put like where I'm going to see this team, like a limit or threshold on it, like how far do you think the Sixers will go next season?
See that's like without knowing like what the roster it's gonna really depend on what they do with like Danny Green. I think Tobias Harris is probably gone. From what I read and like keep up with, they say that they're not gonna sign him or they can't afford to sign him and Harden and all so it's gonna come down to the roster, man. Like they gotta make executed moves, even if it's like next season they take a step back temporarily just to get ahead that next season. That's they gotta at least get to the finals like one of these years because it's just they've been knocking on the doorstep and for one reason or another, they don't make it. So to me, it's just the roster like has to be better next year.
Who makes that much money on the team other than Embiid and Harden?
Tobias
like, Harris is a decent contract, but he's not a max.
Yeah, he's got.
So why are they in a cap crunch? Like they should have lots of room.
Did they pick up some of Simmons' contract? I feel like they must.
I think they did. Let me see if I can piece something together. I just know like between Tobias, Harden. I mean, are they owing him all that money? Is that how that one worked?
Yeah, I think they owe Harden like 40-something million next year.
Yeah, that's definitely for next season. Like he got traded there, and part of the deal was like you're opting to be a Sixer for the following season as well. Because
when like that went down, I know you got to get rid of Simmons and get him as far away as possible, but like I think they could have done.
They didn't go that far.
Better. Yeah, right. Yeah,
the same division.
But get him the hell out of Philly. That was the whole MO. But yeah, I mean,
wait till next year when he just locks fucking Embiid down so bad.
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know.
Defensively, I'm excited to see that. Offensively, I think we know who Ben Simmons is, right? But like, see if he can clamp down, or if he can even play that way. We don't even know what he'll be like.
Like, obviously, he has his limitations mentally or whatever. So like, he doesn't seem like the kind of person who's gonna like go for revenge and like go hard at Embiid. But I would love.
He's no Jimmy Butler.
I would love it if he did. Just being like, fuck this guy. I'm gonna make sure you get no points today.
See, I gotta be on Embiid's side because it's like the guy at least showed up and like, I mean, even with a busted face and everything else, like he's out there. I'm not gonna say he's like the GOAT or like he's one of the best players. Yeah, I mean he is.
Well, he is.
Yeah, he definitely is.
Perennial MVP candidate. Our issue with Embiid has nothing to do with his basketball.
My thing with Embiid though, it's like I can't fault him, but it just seems like he always gets banged up right in the playoffs come. It's like you're scared he's gonna go down. Like it's just
it's always something different. It's not like it's a repetitive like quad injury or something, right? He got his thumb ripped off. He got his fucking face broken. Like
I know it's just like what's next year? You know what I mean? Like it's always something. So, but that's like Philadelphia sports in general. Like you just get that panic as soon as you hit the postseason. It's like here we go again.
That's true. Donovan McNabb, Terrell Owens breaking his ankle, all that kind of
but Carson Wentz won and then you won anyway.
But So if you're talking about like rosters and stuff, like if you had like ideal situation work itself out, who's someone that would end up on the Sixers that would like push you over the top?
Jimmy Butler. Oh damn!
Yeah,
You already got rid of him.
I would love to see them, finesse him back to Philly, but I think like if they would go get Bradley Beal, that might be enough. I don't know. It's tough, man. It really like I just feel like the West is so deep that like no matter like we could if we get through the East and like I think Boston's a very like a big threat now. I just think they over this season and like I think continue on like they'll be a problem for a while. It's like I'd like to see Bradley Beal personally. I think that'd be awesome, but yeah, they're gonna have to find another shooter or two, and I don't know who that really will be. Like I don't know. Everybody's so expensive that is like worth a damn. You know what I mean? So it's like these role players are just not good enough either. So I don't know where we go from here, man. Honestly, I don't.
So when Embiid starts with his antics, when he's like doing the airplane and oh shit, and and he's making comments after the games and stuff, like you guys like cheering him on, or you guys like, hey, why don't you shut the fuck up until like until the lasting memory of you in the playoffs isn't Kawhi ripping your fucking heart from your chest?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. It's tough because like the Philly fans do love like he really can't do much wrong in their eyes. I'm kind of always like I'm not on that train. Like I wasn't like full in on Carson Wentz when everybody was like, "Oh my God, he's the second coming of Christ." Like I was like, "Yeah, let's pump the brakes a little bit." It's the same thing with like how Embiid acts like this, and like it's everybody's like, "It's okay, he's Embiid, it's okay." But I'm like, "All right, let's just shut up and get through the next round." You know what I mean? Let's just get through it. Let's go to the finals. Then you know what I mean? Win the finals. That's obviously the goal, and then talk as much as you want. But it just sucks when it's year in and year out, and it's still not like they're not winning the chip, and he just talks too much, man, for his own good. Like, in my opinion. So
Yeah, well, it worked out for him this year, but yeah, it definitely every time I saw him like doing stuff, my mind just flashed back to him sitting on the floor crying. I'm like, I can't take anything you say seriously right now.
yeah, I get it, man. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's like this team, no matter who they have, like maybe obviously you guys getting that bounce on Leonard's shot, like that was 1 in a million. But I don't know. It seems like ever since then, it's like, all right, is this ever gonna happen again? I don't know. We'll see. I have my hesitations.
So you trying to say that Leonard didn't plan that?
I don't know about that.
Are you trying to call it a fluke?
I don't know if he could do it again. That's the thing. I don't know if he could do that shot again.
Oh no, he can hardly walk right now, so probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually like Leonard a lot. Just that shot was just one of the can't do anything about it, but yeah.
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 Yeah, I don't know if we had anything else written down to get you to cover. So if you have any last remarks that we could take those, or and if not, we just say thanks for having you on and can
What
shout
about
out.
let me hear you if you guys have time.
Yeah, man.
Talk about the Leafs a little bit because I was all in on like rooting for them. Like what do you guys feel about that whole situation? Obviously.
Well, Dave's just ditched the Leafs. He's a Sharks fan.
That happened a long time ago.
Yeah, so he's been on the Sharks for a long time. He doesn't really participate in like the Maple Leafs trials and tribulations. I'm not a hardcore hockey fan, but I do cheer for the Leafs. And for me to not follow it as intensely as I do, or as my friends do, and still feel the way I do after like every year, thinking this might be better, and then it never is better. We just get disappointed the same way every time. Yeah. Like it's pretty traumatizing.
Yeah, it's weird that like I don't know where in the episode this is gonna go. So we've already talked about it, or we're gonna talk about it. But it's weird how like the team's completely different from like when the lockout ended and we lost to Boston the way we did, or they did. And but this still seems like it's the same mental block, even though none of the players are the same. It's like a
Right.
really weird phenomenon. It's like the whole fucking team is like the franchise is cursed, but like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so that word's being tossed around a little bit right now about there being some sort of curse affecting the Maple Leafs, but at least like comparing this year to last year, at least they didn't lay down in Game 7. They didn't look like they were just mailed it in
either. They had like 14 shots in the first 2 periods.
Yeah, but like the effort was there. Whether the results were there is another story. It didn't look like they were out for a fun skate. So
I give you that. I mean, I think they played about as hard as it seems like they could have, but it's just gotta be psychologically a little bit like torture for those, like obviously for the fans, that's without question, but like being in that building, like just whether you're, part of the staff, like training staff, any of it, as far as like year in and year out of just, you just can't get through a series, like that's painful. Like I genuinely felt kind of bad because I was like, damn, like I don't know. I'm kind of a Tampa hater too. Like I just don't want Tampa to win. I don't want that whole thing. So I was like, come on, Leafs, like pull it out. I knew the second they lost Game 6 though, like I could have bet my entire life savings that they were going to lose Game 7. Like I was like, there's no way they go to Game 7 and pull, and it's just year in and year out. It's repetitive at this point. And like, yeah, the Red Sox after 100 years got a World Series, but I just was like, it's not their time yet. Like they're still in that rut. Like it just didn't feel like they were going to win that game.
yeah. So you're thinking what, another like 45 years then to make it 100, an even 100?
I don't know.
I hope they can get through a series next year. I think maybe Tampa takes a step back. Like, I mean, they're a damn good team. Like Toronto's a damn good team. It's just like they can't.
They're fucked in the cap though next year and moving forward.
Okay.
I don't listen to a ton of sports talk radio. I'm usually listening to a podcast or whatever, but I was listening to Nick Kiprios on our sports station here, and he was going through like how there's a bunch of RFAs for some of the peripheral players, and it seems like a fucking disaster, and they don't know how they're going to sign anybody. Jack Campbell's not signed. Guys like Mikheyev aren't signed, and it's just they don't know how they have like $5 million in cap space, and Campbell alone is going to take up more than that.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Like that is definitely I don't know. This felt a little bit different, I thought, this year than years prior, but it's still, whether you call it a curse or just ineptitude to win, I don't know. It just sucks. But
yeah,
you think the Blue Jays catch the Yanks at any point this year? I hope so.
I'm not worried. It's a long season. There's still 125 games to go.
Should I be worried? I'm a Orioles fan. I'm not a Phillies fan, for the record, but
worried what, that you're never gonna not finish last?
Yeah, should I be worried I'll never see another World Series or a World Series in my lifetime? I should say
for the foreseeable future. Yeah, you should be pretty worried. Tampa's going anywhere. The Yankees, they might take a dive soon. Like their judge is coming up, and it's not 100% he's going to sign.
If he keeps doing what he's doing, I feel like they gotta pay him.
I don't know. They fucking only offered him like $200 million during the offseason or whatever, which is I know it sounds crazy to say, but that's a slap in the face compared to what other people are being offered that are in his spot.
Well, but he's having a good season, right? Like he's
had a lot of good seasons.
He's having almost an MVP type of year so far this year. So I absolutely hate the Yankees with a passion though. Like I don't know. I'm sure you guys do too in Toronto. Obviously it's not Boston or anything to that extent.
No, we don't like them. I don't like that.
God, I hate them.
It's been really annoying, like especially when like the Jays haven't been as exciting, and you go to a Jays Yankees game and it's just unbearable.
It's all fucking New Yorkers.
It's so unbearable.
Right. That's another problem, because I think like they want to claim they have the best fan base, but I think it's just a lot of fake fans. Like it's easy to like the team that has the most chips. Like it's not a challenge. You know what I mean? I don't know. I can't stand it. I hope they start to cool off. I mean, obviously they're the best team in baseball record wise, but I hope that changes. That's all.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
they always level off. Like they're not going to play 750 baseball a year, right? So
No, of course not. But I hope Tampa catches them, or you guys. I wouldn't even have a problem if you guys. You know, I like what you guys are doing. I think you have a lot of talent on that team. Like that lineup is pretty stout.
yeah,
Pitching staff's definitely not bad at all either. So
our bullpen again, man. We were doing well at the beginning, and now we're like second place in blown saves.
yeah, that hurts, man. That hurts because those are games you got to have. Like, can't close them all out, but you can't give them away either.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'll let you know what I think in August when I start watching the season.
yeah, that's a fair point. Like people are definitely overboard already on who's gonna win it all. It's like, dude, it's not even June.
Are you all in on the baseball on the actual ball conspiracies?
Dude, I wouldn't say I'm all in, but I definitely think I wouldn't be shocked if it's going on. I think it is going on if I were to say.
It's the average OPS is like the lowest it's ever been, like including the dead ball era. Like just it's nobody's hitting, and the average OPS in the major leagues right now is like 627. Special guest shows up.
Yeah, right. No, I'm dog sitting, but what do you call it? No, I get that, man. But I think in these primetime games, like I would not be shocked if they're using a juiced ball. You know what I mean? I wouldn't even be that mad. Like if both teams are getting access to the ball, like whatever. Like if the games are 12-10, so be it. Like I don't know. I want it to be exciting. Like I want baseball to not, go backwards. I mean, in the public eye, they might think, well, they're changing the game because they're using a bullshit ball, but like,
who cares? People like runs, people like 100-mile-an-hour pitches. Let them fucking use the sticky substance. Let them use steroids. Let them use balls. Just fucking make it fun. Who cares?
Yeah, that would be wild. If steroids came like full circle and they just let everybody, like you'd be seeing guys hit 70 home runs again. But the pitching
when have people ever paid more attention than when Barry Bonds hit 75 home runs or whatever he hit, and during the McGuire and Sosa chase? Like,
yeah, 100%.
That's what people want.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily like the games that are like only home runs, but hit. I like defense. Like I like watching guys make diving catches and stuff. But for the general public, like people want to see runs. So give them what they want.
100%. Like I'm probably. I mean, baseball is my favorite sport by a landslide, and I still can't. It's hard for me to watch like a 2-1 game. It just is. Like 9 innings of 2-1 is a little stale. Like so. I mean, I get it. But yeah, do you buy the fact? Like, did you hear what the Mets pitcher said?
Which one?
Dude, he's like, I think he's their fifth. I forget his name.
Bassett.
Yeah. Did you see what he said about?
No. Quick though, we're gonna run out of time. We're gonna get cut off in like.
All right, so we had Aaron on from Brutally Honest Sports Podcast. He does that with his partner Daniel, and their Twitter handle is @brutal with a capital B 0811. Give him a follow there. And apologies for the abrupt ending. We used Zoom and had like a 30-minute time limit. So as it ends there, that's what happened. Apologies to Aaron. We already sorted that out offline, but wanted to acknowledge it here as well. All right. So you ready for these grievances?
Yes, sir.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're going to hear about it.
All right. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Sure, I can go first. So my grievance this week or last week or whatever is people who handle stress poorly. So there's been a couple instances lately at work. So I've been doing kind of like a literally not pun, whatever the pun's happening whether I intended it or not. A shitty job to do. We were.
Hey-oh, I get it. Nice.
We were working inside of a sanitary pit or a shit pit, and we were replacing the pumps for that pit. So before we started, we had to do an overnight shift where we disconnected the old pumps. We put a containment unit, so like we built basically just like a metal box inside the pit and diverted the water into the box and put a couple temporary pumps in.
Were you hoping that people weren't going to use the bathroom at like 3 a.m?
There's buildings empty. It was a civic center, so like, there's nobody there.
I'm mostly just alluding back to your previous plan of late night working with sewage type things.
No, we also had the water shut off this time.
Hey!
So where am I in the story? Yeah, so anyways, water goes in the containment, gets pumped out. So as we're building, so how they built the box was they had this metal box. It was built in like 3 layers because the hole to get into the pit's fairly narrow. So the bottom part goes in, and then like there's a ring, a flanged ring that goes on top, and then it's nuts and washers all the way, bolts and nuts all the way around, bolting it together. So this apprentice who already doesn't like being in there, and it's hot in there, and it stinks obviously, and we're wearing like equipment, we're wearing like suits, and we have chest waders. Actually, I wasn't even down there, but they were wearing
Nice way to flex that muscle, and nice work, my guy.
Someone with first aid had to be on top, so that was me. So they had like chest waders on, and they had like Tyvek suits on, and anyways, so they're building this box, and my boss tells one of the apprentices, he like rested this box of nuts on top of like the box, and he's like, don't put that there, it's getting knocked over. And like they picked up what they could from like we had a vacuum truck, and they've pressure washed, but like there's still a little bit of stuff on the ground, and there's still a little bit of trickling. Like,
so when you say stuff, you're talking about like poo.
Yeah, whatever residual residue is there from the shit and everything else that was in the pit before.
Okay.
It wasn't 100% cleaned up, so this guy, he ends up like
knocking the
box over. So he had to fucking get down there and pick him up, because the guy was like, I didn't buy extra. I told you not to do that, so you're gonna have to fucking pick him up. So he got down and he's fucking picking them up, and he just started getting like really irritated, and we had like an exhaust. So we had like a hose for exhaust and a hose for fresh air, right? And but as we were passing stuff down through the hole, sometimes we move them out of the way. So we moved the fresh air one out of the way and forgot to put it back. And I guess the guy, he was pissed off from that, and he started getting hot, and he just didn't like being down there, and he was kind of being cunty anyways. And then he looks up and he sees us not there, and he's sweating and he's pissed, and he starts like screaming at us. Like, there's a couple of us up there. He wasn't screaming directly at me or anything, but like he starts screaming up at us to put the fresh air hose back in. All he had to do was say, "Hey, can you put it back?" I went, "Oh yeah." Boom, 2 seconds, right? But no, he's fucking screaming at us. I'm like, fuck you. Like, you don't, A, you're an apprentice, so shut the fuck up and stop yelling at us. And B, like, stop being a bitch. Like, there's people down there who are doing that job and not acting like a cunt, so just stop it. And ask if you want something. Don't yell at people.
Sounds like he has a shitty attitude. So happy with myself.
How long was that waiting?
I've been waiting for a while. That was a great time though when you did all that. I was like, oh, I'm gonna say it. I'm saying it.
So I had to tell him to calm the fuck down. And then this past week we had done all the work to install the new pumps, and so we were doing the final tie-in. Again, we had to do it overnight. So this time I am down there. I just lost patience with the people who were going down, because like,
you said, forget first aid. I'm gonna get down here and give first aid to myself.
Well, I would have been down there anyways because I was this one guy who was supposed to be down there. He's like starting from the first night we did it. He took like 4 ship breaks that night. He just found every excuse to have to not be in there. And then he was doing the same thing all throughout the week. Like this one guy ended up having to do like the brunt of the work because this guy was just not pulling his weight. So near the end of the week and during the final shutdown, I was like, I'm going to go down and help him and get this stuff done faster. And in the meantime, he had gone to renew his first aid anyway, so it was all fine. So my boss was there for the shutdown again, and we had done this. We had we set the pumps like a certain distance apart, and we had prefabbed this piece that's going to connect them both and then tie. It's one piece that connects both pump lines and then also ties it in to the existing. And it was like an inch short, the piece going across to meet both the pumps. So my boss immediately just like, this is fucked. He gets out of the hole, starts fucking up there having a fucking hissy fit. And we let it go, and we let it go. And then he just kept, he said like 4 or 5 or maybe like 6 times, oh, you guys fucked it up, you fucked it up, you fucked it up. And it got to the point where I was like, I literally had to yell. I was like, continuing to tell us that we fucked it up is not helping. So you need to either help us figure out how to fix it or just stop. Just like go walk away because you're not fucking helping anything. And then he like took a minute and then he ended up calming down. I think he wanted someone. And afterwards, he was like, I just wanted someone to acknowledge
that there was a screw up.
Yeah. But
and
also,
you did. Look at you.
It's also the benefit of working in the environment I do, where I can tell my boss to fuck off and shut up, and like it's just like we were telling the story. We had a ratification vote on Tuesday. Thankfully, no strike. And we were telling a mutual friend of ours like about the night, and we got to that part of the story, and he was like, "Yeah, he told me to go fuck myself," and then he laughed about it, right? Like it's not something that like bugs him. Whereas like in another situation, like I'm just imagining your situation, you tell your principal like, "Hey, you're not fucking helping. Shut the fuck up." Or
I would have to find a very diplomatic way to say that, and I have found ways to say it, but I could never ever use that type of language to communicate that I want them to do that. But I have to find very, very careful language to get that message across. But yeah, that sucks.
But yeah, and both of those situations didn't have to be handled that way by either of those guys. It's just poor stress management by them. And they don't need to be that way. I just wish that more people could keep their cool.
Look at that. Look at you.
And my second grievance is that the first time that it got over like 24 degrees, 75 degrees for our American friends, and it was sunny out, I got fried.
Yeah, see, I don't live that life. I've been sunburnt like 3 times in my life. And that was like in direct sun with a shirt off from morning until night. And I got burnt finally. So
it was the morning after the shutdown. I went home. I got home by like 4:30. I sat in the shower for literally an hour, just
trying to get that off
trying
of you.
To be clean. And then got like a couple hours of sleep, and then Logan had practice at 10. So I was out doing that, and it was pretty sunny that morning, and yeah, my whole fucking scalp, shoulders, actually not my shoulders, my neck was just all fried.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like fun. All right.
Happens every year. I get like a base burn, and then I'm fine. Nice golden brown the rest of the year.
Nice. There you go. People pay big bucks for that. All right. Yeah, my grievance is a little more straightforward than yours. The frustration, the grievance that I have is about people who flake. So, person at work just retired in a pretty boss way. Kind of like had said we're going to retire at the end of the school year, and then kind of said I changed my mind and just said like her retirement party was on Saturday. That's why I went to the casino. Yeah, I said like, okay, like I'm good. This is my last day. Like she like bought lunch for everybody, which was so generous. Like that was amazing. It was delicious. Chinese food, and it was so good. And she's like, yeah, this is my last day. And we're like, what? And like, have you told people that need to know? And like, yeah, I will. And we're like, are you sure? Like, you should probably do. They're like, yeah, no, it's fine. I know I'm good. So like, yeah, maybe I'll stop by at the end of the day and let them know. And I'm like, oh wow, that's like a big time, just like move right there. And so that part was awesome because I'm like, I wish I could just say, all right, this is it, off into the sunset, never seeing me again. So with that, like, people were like, oh, like, you interested in coming for the night? Like, a bunch of people went out for dinner. I couldn't make the dinner. I went out after the dinner. But went out for dinner and like a night out, and people, like a bunch of people, like, yeah, like, I'm good, like, put me down, blah blah blah. And so like made these arrangements, and then as it gets closer and closer, like, oh, like, yeah, like, this happened, like, I'm really busy, so like I don't think I can make it. Yeah, like, I'm like really busy, so like I can't make it. Oh, like, like, I didn't realize I had to like drive to the casino, so like I can't make it. Like, oh, I didn't really like realize that like the casino has gambling, so like I can't make it. Like, whatever excuses were just coming out. And I'm like, then why did you commit in the first place? It bothers me that you flake out like that. Like, if you're gonna commit to something, it's like a legit emergency. I get it. No worries, man. Like, life happens. I've had to bail because like legitimate emergencies have happened. Like, my car broke down. Like, kids are sick. Whatever that. Like, there's a way that I can't get there. But like, yeah, these things are like, oh, like, yeah, like, I looked at the time and I realized like I probably can't make it. So like, have fun tonight. It's like, then why did you ever say you were coming? Like, that's just so annoying.
Oh, I forgot I had kids. I can't come.
It's just like, oh my gosh. Like, if you really wanted this to happen, then you would have planned your life out, because we made this date months in advance. And so like, I get that things will creep up in between there, but you still know. And so if you really want this to happen, then you'll make it happen.
So she knew all along she was retiring now.
But because we have to do, like, as a staff, when people retire, typically we recognize the retirement, right, and it has to happen before the end of the school year, because she's not coming back, right? I'm not gonna be like, hey, come back in the fall for this. Like, I'm not.
Yeah, but like a dinner casino night could have been in the end of June.
But that's report card season, so we're not gonna schedule a night out during report card season, because we're gonna get even less turnout. So that was why we did it when we did it. And it wasn't the May long weekend, and it wasn't Mother's Day. So like, okay, there's the sweet spot, because June's going to show up, and with report cards and then grade 8 grad, like, June's a wash. Like, there isn't a lot of free time on a weekend to make this happen. And like, we're not getting people out during the week.
So you don't think this was planned by her all along?
What?
This sudden retirement?
No, absolutely not. Like, this woman... It was very much by the book. So I think in like getting conversations and like preparing for it, I think that perhaps her family decision was like, well, could you do this now, knowing that all this other stuff is happening? And then when she like went through the scenarios, she was like, oh, I think I can. And then it happened like that. I don't think it was like I'm ready to go by this date now, and I'm just going to like lead everybody else along. I don't think that she would have.
I was kind of hoping there was like a juicy, dramatic event that brought this on.
Like what?
I don't know. Maybe she had like a huge fight with the principal, and she's like, you know what? I don't need to be here. Go fuck yourself, and just left.
No, she didn't say it in any of those words. Like, she kind of did do that when she like went and like moved up her retirement unannounced, and like didn't really give them a heads up.
Yeah, what brought that on? Did she say?
Nah. And I'm like, good for you, man. I don't need to know. It's like, that's amazing. It's
she just felt like being done.
I think she could make it happen, and then she did. And like, if retirement's that close, I would be looking for a way to retire just that little bit earlier. Like,
that's so fucked. Like, some LTO is gonna have to come in and try and write her report cards, and that's gonna be
she said like she's got them done already.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's like, I will do this so that when I leave, no one has to do that. So she was very much like, I will not do that to the person. Like, quality report card at this point, I don't know, but they're done.
What grade did you teach?
It was grade 6 French.
Oh, fuck.
So, done and done. But yeah, that's my grievance.
She probably wrote those in March.
Yeah, maybe. That's my grievance. Like, people who flake. Like, just don't commit then. Don't say you're coming for sure 100% and then not. Like,
The irony is this could be about the person who retired or the people who wanted to come to the party and didn't.
yeah. And it's about the people who didn't come to the party. But yeah, so that's it. And that I'm going to segue this perfectly into my gratitude. And that is that I won $100 at the casino. I hit on the roulette table. So I was like, sweet.
That's my favorite game.
That's my favorite game. That's when I play like almost exclusively at the casino. So yeah, it was minimum $25 bet. So a little
Steep.
little
Where were you
steep.
at?
Fallsview. A little steep for the kid, but you know, I did my grandma's taxes, and my grandma, who is on a pension, said, "You know what? Here, I'll give you $100 for your services," and I reject this money wholeheartedly every time. And she just said, "Stop arguing," and I just don't anymore. But I will be like, "This is too much money. Like, you want to give me like $10? You want to give me like a 20? And that's like your like make yourself feel good about this? Fine. But like 100 is excessive." But I was like, okay, free money, $100. I'm willing to lose this $100. So made my first bet, didn't hit. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a quick night at the table. And so I bet again.
Were you betting on the inside?
On the inside, $5 chips. So I get 5 bets on the inside. So I have like numbers I go to. Like 4 is my favorite. So I put one on 4 and I corner. And then 30 is a favorite. So I do 30 and I cornered that. And so there's 4 chips and the other one's just on a random number. And so I hit on 30 and I was like, sick, pay me. And so then I immediately like pocketed that 100 and the 100 I came with. So I was like, okay, I'm good. And then I'll play with this remainder that I had. And that went relatively quickly. But I'm like, whatever, $100 for like 10 minutes of like work on the table. That was a win.
So what did you do the rest of the night?
Walked around, watched people lose money.
I can't do that.
Yeah, I can. I was just like, oh. And like I drove too, right? So I was just like, I had a water and I'm like, okay, when this water's done and people seem to be wrapping up, then I'll head out. So that's what happened. And that's my gratitude. Free $100. What about you?
So my gratitude this week, I actually have one. So there's a gratitude.
Yeah, boom. Check mark.
Second gratitude is John.
Oh my God.
My cousin got married again this weekend. They had a COVID wedding and they had like 3 people in attendance. So when things opened up again, they had like a legit. Well, it was legit before, but they had like a big party,
Like a big
wedding.
celebration and ceremony and all that.
Yeah,
cool.
So we last second realized that we had figured out where we were sending the kids, but didn't figure out our dog. So it's like, was it Thursday or Friday? I texted you.
It was Thursday.
Oh no, it was the wedding was on
Friday.
The wedding was on Friday, so yeah, it was like Thursday. So the day before, Alicia and my parents had got us a hotel room, so we were staying the night, and we're like, oh shit, we need to get this dog taken out. So I'm texting John, and he immediately agreed and sent like photos, like, here, look, I took your dog out, and we went for a walk, and yeah, and so just having somebody that you can count on to call last second and help you out. That's my gratitude.
Cool. Well, appreciate that. Thanks for shouting me out on the pod. Yeah, Dave doesn't like when I talk about him, but I don't know if we talked about this, like the day that I got my flat, I just called you and you showed up. You
mentioned it before.
Yeah, you just showed up, and I was like, I didn't even know like what was going on in your life. I was just like, hey, who's a guy that like probably has the stuff that could help me? And you were the first thought, and then you're like, yeah, I'll be right there. And then
you had called on a Friday, so I was home.
Right, but like I didn't know that, and then you're like, yeah, it's my day off, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about any of this stuff. You're like, yeah, I was like, how lucky is that? I'm like, I thought you were working, and like you like could make this happen somehow. So yeah, no, I also agree. It's good to have people you can count on for sure. So glad I could help out, and like Rusty's a good guy, like a good dog, so it was super easy.
I forgot to warn you, just like if you come across another dog, just like walk away.
I feel like the neighborhood knows because I saw a couple people with their dogs and like they kind of like stayed away a little bit, or like they crossed the street.
People do that even when like.
Well, he's a big dog, so like some people are just worried about big dogs, period.
But people do that even like when I think it's like a COVID thing more because people if I'm like even if Rusty's inside or tied up on the porch or whatever and I'm playing in the front like the kids are going up and down the sidewalk on their rollerblades or whatever, people like from like half a kilometer down the street they cross and go around. They try not to pass by as closely.
Yeah, I have some dog owners in my neighborhood that do that, but I think it's because they can't manage their dog on the leash. And like I did that yesterday morning. I was walking Mowgli, and this woman was on the sidewalk. And I'm like, I'm not crossing. Like, we can walk by each other with dogs. Like that shouldn't be an issue. And if it's so big of an issue, then like you'll tell me that, and I can deal, or you will deal. Mm-hmm. So like we're both coming, and Mowgli does a great job, and her dog is just immediately like trying to like pull, and so she's like leaning back and two-handing the leash. She's like, "Oh, come on!" Like I'm like, "Okay, clearly this is why you typically cross the street." But
yeah, for Rusty, if I can walk right past another dog, but like I put him on the opposite side of me, and I just like kind of like what Caesar says when you come in. No, don't look, don't touch, don't talk, whatever. Just
no
ignore,
touch, no talk, no eye contact.
Right, just ignore that the other dog's even there. So like, if I'm not paying attention to that dog, then he's not gonna.
Do you use a Caesar sound effects? You go. Ch, ch.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
When I fucking pull on his collar to give him caresses, I do sometimes.
He's actually really good on the leash.
Yeah,
he was like really good. Like I barely touched it, and he would look at me, and I'm like, "Okay, let's go." And he'd like turn around, and that was it. I was like, "Oh, this is pretty nice." Like Mowgli's still got so much energy, so he's a little more difficult on the leash for the most part.
He for the most part, he'll like walk right beside us, but he creeps ahead. Roxy was like never got in front of us. She was like a perfect walker. He didn't inherit that much.
But he walks very well. It was very easy to deal. I found it hilarious that I bring him back and he go in the kitchen and he does like this head nod. I'm like,
knows where the stuff is.
It was so funny. I'm like, the first time I was like, it was a little hot. So I'm like, oh, maybe he's thirsty. So like I redid his water. And he's like, you're so dumb. And like he just kept nodding. And I'm like, oh, he wants a treat. And I'm like, you're not getting a treat yet. Dave had explicit instructions about bedtime.
Yeah, I think I phrased that wrong. I meant that like we give it to him at night, but if you like as a not a stranger, but like someone who doesn't really interact with him all the time, wanted to just give him. That's what I meant.
He definitely tried to abuse the situation though. He definitely saw what was happening. He was like, oh, somebody new here. I'm gonna try to get some more treats. And I just thought it was funny like how communicative he was like with his head, because like Mowgli, he uses his nose and he will like bonk us with his nose, or like he's conditioned to a song that Lindsay uses for her alarm for dinner. So he hears it and he runs right to the cupboard and he bonks his nose on the cupboard. It's like that's how he tells us stuff. So it's just really funny watching Rusty communicate that way. I'm like, oh, like this is your communication style.
Throwing that huge fucking
just a boom, boom. And I'm like, like sorry, bud. So I gave him 2 at bedtime. I thought, you know what? Here you go. You get 2 because you're such a good guy. But yeah, it was fine. It was easy to do. So glad I could help out.
He doesn't fight the leash or anything like that, so it's good.
Yeah, and well, that brings us there to the end of our episode. Rusty, good old boy. And thanks for listening.